Good afternoon, writers, and welcome to another session of Writer's Workshop. Here's our I Can for today. As we continue to move through and develop a plan and develop some background for our fantasy fiction story that we're going to be writing in the coming weeks, we're really diving deep and using our knowledge of personal narrative and writing from our own experiences as a way of jumping off and adding depth to a character that is not us. So today, our I Can is I can identify and describe significant events in my life that serve as story elements. You'll need, over there today, you'll need paper to write on, or you'll need the Google Docs assignment that was posted to Google Classroom. You can always do your writing on paper and then transfer it to Google Classroom or to Google Docs after the fact. So feel free to write on paper today. Before we get into the real bulk of today's new learning, I do want to remind about the Writer's Workshop structure that we used when we were in class, because finding sort of the routine of writing can sometimes be the most crucial piece, and feeling like you're in a space where you're ready to write and ready to go is sometimes kind of the most helpful and can often alleviate some of those writer's block concerns. So when we were in the classroom, here was our schedule, or our sort of step by step for how a Writer's Workshop session would work. We got our mini lesson where we're thinking about, okay, what are we writing today? What's the task? What are we producing? Then we've got Quiet 10. Quiet 10, for those of you who need a little refresher on it, is our period to just be with your writing and just be with your story. We're not going to be talking to people. We're not going to be, looking up in books for research necessarily. Just sit with your writing and just write independently. When we were in the classroom, we were putting music on during this time. If that helps you to put music on while you independently write, go for it. Try it, okay? But after this mini lesson, after this goes off the air, give yourself some time to independently write. And by independent, I mean on your own. Grown-ups at home watching, give them time to write, okay? Having that ability to sort of sit with a minute and grapple with something when you don't know exactly what comes next, that's an important writing skill, just like grammar or punctuation or anything else. The craft of writing is important here too. After Quiet 10, you're either going to continue writing, or you're going to move into a writing conference. For small group D, that's going to be you today. If you're not in writing small group D, but you still want support on your writing, there are a couple of ways to do it. You can go to your house common room on Padlet and post a link to your writing and say, hey, can somebody give me read my writing and give me some feedback? And we're going to go into more depth in the coming weeks on sort of how to give really effective feedback on Google Docs, but that is an option, okay? If you don't need to conference with anybody, just keep writing. If you want to keep that music on and keep, you're in a groove, go for it, okay? If you can write for 20, 30 minutes without stopping, that's awesome, okay? If you need to take a water break and get back to it for 10 minutes, great, do that too, okay? And then our share out comes at the end. We've been doing share outs on Tuesdays and Thursdays in the afternoon. So those are our opportunities to share out. So just because we are remotely learning in the midst of a global pandemic and fires and everything else going on, we can still try to replicate this structure as best we can. So I do really want to encourage all of you to, after you're done watching this video and getting your instructions for what to work on today, give yourself a Quiet 10 to really go and be with your writing, be with your experiences, and give it a try. Make sense? Great. Let's move on to the bulk of our lesson today, which is first times, last times, turning points. And if we go back to our I Can for the day, I can identify and describe significant events in my life that can serve as story elements. And just like with our lesson on Tuesday, where we talked about how our personal details can inform and add depth to our character, our personal experiences can do the same thing. And things like first times, last times, and turning points, are sort of those significant events in the middle, can have the most, oh, what's the word? Juiciness, crunchiness, the most complexity and the highest level of detail in your own brain, in your own experience. And then getting that out on paper does two things. One, it can serve as inspiration. So, if you're writing about the first time you went to a karate class, you can channel those feelings or channel those details and maybe put them into what your character's doing the first time, right? It could be that your character's literally doing the same thing that you were doing for the first time, or it could be something different and you're transferring those feelings over. The other thing that focusing on first times, last times, and turning points does is it really gets our level of writing detail going and steps it up to the next level. Because at times it can be easy to just kind of tell the events that are going on, but you end up with, I call them the grocery list stories of like the first I woke up, then I put on my pajamas, then I took off my pajamas and put on my clothes, and then I had a bowl of cereal, and then we drove in the car, and then we went to school, and then I did math, and that, right? Like, that is telling the story of a day, but it's not the most interesting story because it's lacking that level of depth. We don't get inside the character's head. It's just kind of listing stuff that we did, like a grocery list lists the groceries that you need at the store. So moving beyond the grocery list and really feeling like this story is fully realized and fully imaginable to your reader is really important. Okay, so this is what the Google Doc exit ticket's going to look like today, and it's challenging you to come up with a first time, a last time, and a turning point. So I'll read up the directions here. Thinking of powerful personal stories can be a great place to find inspiration for your fiction stories. In the boxes below, share a short 3 to 5 sentences or so story from your life that fits the sentence starter. Try and choose a moment that is significant or important to you and you can speak about with detail. Okay, I'm going to choose the first time, and I'm going to model just this one. I don't want to have you sit here and just watch me write for 20 or 30 minutes. But I do want to model the level of detail that we're looking for, because it's not enough just to go, I remember the first time I went swimming. It was wet. The end. We can do better than that. Okay, we have details, right, of channeling those feelings. The first thing that jumped out to me to write about was, I remember the first time I taught a class by myself. Okay, and what we want to do here is we want to get and go beyond like the retell and really tell it like a storyteller. So not just saying I was nervous, right? Using those show not tell details. So being able to say, and I'm writing this completely off the top of my head, so this is a first draft here. Let's see. There were only 27 first graders in the room that morning. But it might as well have been 270, let's say. Let's go a little multiple of 10 here. Might as well have been 270 for how nervous I felt. No mentor teacher, no professor, just me and an entire room filled seemingly to the brim with 6-year-olds. Okay, so really trying to push past the sort of surface level details and really shooting for the storyteller voice and that storyteller depth. Okay, let's continue. Let's see. Let's see. We can do this. The door clicked shut as the last student filed inside. And 27 pairs of eager eyes looked straight at me. And we can even use this trope here. I was terrified. Let's see. Where do I go from here next? And there are times when like the next sentence doesn't come, right? So thinking about it, imagining those like all those tiny little people, almost like I almost want to do like something about like, were they 27 puppies ready to be my best friend forever, or 27 sharks ready to devour me whole? Something like that, you know, using like an analogy or using some sort of metaphorical language, right? And you can keep going, right? I said share 3 to 5 sentences. That looks like 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 5. Okay, so I could stop here. If I'm feeling so inspired, and I definitely am, so I'm definitely going to continue writing about this after the video is over. But I could keep going with this. And what this is doing is, what this exercise is doing is it's really getting me thinking in a storyteller mode and going beyond just listing stuff. So that when I go to write my fantasy story, I could make my main character some sort of leader figure who is kind of, maybe they're thrust into a leadership position and they don't feel like they're ready yet, because that's the kind of feeling I'm feeling in this first time story. Or perhaps they're an adult and they've all of a sudden been handed some kids to take care of. Could be Gru in Despicable Me, could be, you know, could be any other number of story like that that I'm not thinking of. The only one I could think of was Despicable Me, which, sure. And so either I could keep writing this, or I could continue down to, here's the story of the last time and this could be, you know, as some examples, could be the last time I saw a friend before they moved away. Could be the last time I played with a toy before it broke. Could be the last time I tried something. It could be like the last time I tried riding a bike without a helmet, right? That's going back to our learning a lesson the hard way kind of things. And the other thing is, and I do want to give some examples to that, is some turning points. One turning point that was important to me was, and one of my favorite stories to tell is the story where I got fired from a job. And this was a turning point for me because I got fired from a summer camp job because they didn't like the way I was doing it. And I thought I was trying my best, but it wasn't enough. So I got fired 2 days before camp was supposed to start. And so suddenly I have all this free time of the summer. So I started writing, I started talking to people. Eventually, that free time led me to getting a job as a music teacher. And if I had continued working at that summer camp, I would never have gotten that music teacher job, and I might not have gone back to school to get my teaching credential, and I might not be teaching you today. So I might travel back for my turning point. I might travel back to that moment where I had to walk home from this job after getting fired. I felt awful, absolutely awful, partially because I let the camp down, partially because I didn't think it was fair that I was getting fired, partially because, now, like, how am I going to pay the bills, right? Because I just lost my job. So there's a lot of emotions in there. So the key with this first time, last time, and turning points is really to dig into the emotional content and dig into how you were feeling in that moment. And that and starting that process of really digging into those feelings can lead you to write a character that has emotional depth. Okay? So, I do want to give you some time to write, and it looks like we've got plenty of time to write. So, your job after this video is over, go to Google Classroom and find the first times, last times, turning points exit ticket. Go ahead and open it up and try and come up with one story for each. So if I go back to my document here, each story or each section should kind of look like this first times section here. You'll notice I have some bullet points in the last times. These are just examples, right? So maybe if it's the last time I saw a friend before they moved away, if I choose that as my option, then what I would do is I would start writing, and I would write it similar to our paragraph here, okay? And really go for zooming in and being detailed on your level of writing and the level of emotion you're putting into your story. Okay, everybody? Writing Group D, we will see you in about 10 minutes in the Zoom room. And that's perfect because now you have 10 minutes to independently write. Just you and your writing. Okay? Come up with the first time, tell me the story. Come up with the last time, tell me the story. Come up with a turning point, tell me the story. All right? And then, once you're done with that, jump right into your fantasy fiction. If you've created a new Google Doc to start your story, to start the first draft of your story, go for it. If you're writing your first draft on paper, go for that too. Okay? And use that level of emotional detail in your fiction writing. Okay, everybody? Good luck, and Writing Group D, I will see you in just a little bit.